free Golden Eagles for War Thunder. Download the app in the description below. Hey guys, welcome back to War Thunder and welcome to a very special video because we're going to be visiting a dead BR. The German 6.7. Now, back in the day, the German 6.7 used to be the greatest setup to play. You had the King Tiger Porsche, you had the King Tiger Henschel, and you had the Kugelblitz. These three tanks would dominate. Back in the day, the Yak Panthers were also 6.7. But things change. With every patch, battle ratings get adjusted, and when battle ratings get adjusted, your setup should get adjusted. Unfortunately, it hasn't. The King Tiger remains this to-go vehicle for every single person who's trying to achieve it. Everyone always targets the King Tiger. It's always the meta that's defined. It's always the vehicle that's spammed out the most, is the vehicle that's talked about the most, is the vehicle that's complained and praised about the most. And yet, I couldn't think of a more dead tank than the King Tiger H. The past 6.7 worked wonders. It worked wonders because there were plenty of tanks to use, and because the enemy tech trees had tanks at 6.7. The Russian IS-2 mod 1944, pre the removal of the additional shell that everybody was complaining about, was 6.7. It was one of the main balancing factors. With it being moved back to 6.3, it fills in a completely different gap. It's now fighting Panther A's, Panther F's, Steyr emails, and the occasional King Tiger Porsche. It doesn't fight 6.7 anymore because 6.7 has moved out into the range of early Tier 5 and late Tier 4. Now, every nation, I believe, between Tier 4 and Tier 5 has a battle rating at which it is strongest. It is the battle rating that defines the matchmaker because those are the lineups being played the most. And they should be played the most because they contain the largest amount and also performance in the vehicles. The American native best performing BR and the most spammed out by far is going to be 6.7. You have the T92, you have the T95, the M56, the T34 that just been added, the Super Pershing, the Duster, you even have the premium T29. Out of by far, that is a huge amount of vehicles, a large range of vehicles, and it's very likely that people will have a lot of those tanks, put them in their lineup, and play them out. Not to mention that you can throw in any F8F Bearcat, you can throw in the F7F Tiger Cat, and you have a fantastic lineup that can effectively go not just capture the points, not just hold the points, but also provide close air support. Moving on to the Russian tech tree, it gets slightly different. The strongest Russian BR is between 7.0 and 7.3. We have the T54-9047, the IS-3, the SU-12254. They lack the proper AAA here because the 7.7 ZSU-57 has been nerfed to oblivion and is obviously too high of a BR to throw in, so the ZSU-37 has to do. And mind you, this Russian lineup, whilst might be extremely good when down-tiered, it lacks any kind of good proper close air support. The TU2s are good, they're nice, but they're not optimal. The attacking roles of the SU-6 and the IL-10s are alright, but never quite comparable to that of the F8F1B Bearcat or the soon-to-be-mentioned Griffin Spitfire. And talking about Griffin Spitfires and the British lineup, the British excel at 6.7. You have the Tortoise, you have the Carnarvon, you can easily up-tier the Centurion Mark III, you have the premium Stridswagen 81, and to add on to it, you have a wide selection of Griffin Spitfires at 6.3 and 6.7 to throw into the mix. Also worth noting here is that the British get a horrible SPAA, somewhat alongside like the ZSU-37. It is, the lower BR, so preferably an SPA at 6.7 for both British and Russian would be welcome. But now let's compare this to what the Germans have at their BRs. The German strongest BR starts at 6.0. It starts with the Steyr email, the Panther A, G, and F. And then you can up-tier it slowly to 6.3 by adding the King Tiger Porsche, the Ferdinand, and the Yak Panther. When we reach the battle rating of 6.7 though, the story gets really nasty because of the recent changes. There's only 4 vehicles in the German tank tech tree that are at 6.7. 2 of which are premium, and one of the premiums is pretty much a copy of the King Tiger in the normal tech tree, meaning there's nothing for you to take out that would possibly be able to supply 6.7 with a proper amount of vehicles. The King Tiger and the Coelian combo is simply not as powerful as the King Tiger, Porsche Tiger, and the Kugelblitz combo we used to have. The meta of the game changes, that is correct, but the meta currently has changed to a battle rating of 7.0. If you want a good German lineup, I would actually strongly advise that you get the King Tiger and you don't play it. If you want to play the RU251, you have to play it at a battle rating of 7.0, and if you ask me, the RU251 could easily be 7.0, along with the way the IS-6 is. The constructive problem of the lineup is that a player with a bad lineup will, regardless of how good they are, not be able to properly support their team. And at German 7.0, let me quickly run through the vehicles you have options to. Not just do you have the access to the 105 King Tiger, the Panther II, the phenomenal Yak Tiger, alongside the Kugelblitz. You can throw in either of the Orados, you can throw in the Horton or the 262 A1A. The selection is there. These vehicles can fill up the matchmaker and make it pleasurably more to play. Throw in an RU251 and you've really filled out the matchmaker to the best extent you can with your lineup. The only solution that I see that makes sense in my mind, the way that I've seen matchmaker work, is not by playing less of an upper BR, it's by playing more of it. So if you have not yet, load up your 7.0s and try them out. The combo of the King Tiger 105, the Yak Tiger, and the Panther II should be sufficient to carry off the teams of King Tigers. As in the current meta of the game, the King Tiger H has lost its crown. I know it might be hard to believe if you've just purchased the King Tiger SLA or if you just talismaned your King Tiger. Sorry, it isn't a king anymore. It's become a peasant, and its role has been taken care of by the 7.0s. And I know what you're going to point out. You're going to point out that the 7.0 tanks are more likely to see T10Ms and T54s and, all the other top-tier tanks. Yes, that is why we are now in the position, and now one patch away from 9.0 tanks having to happen. If anyone at Gaijin is listening to this, 9.0 tanks are now not just very much welcome, but needed in the game. The T10, the T62, anything with high amounts of penetration has to be moved to a battle rating of 9.0. That should be able to clear the way for what we have, and I'd like to refer to as the triple tiering system with planes, meaning that an early tier 5 vehicle will not fight a late tier 5 vehicle unless somebody up-tiers it on purpose. And I know that this might come as a huge shock for those of you who are fans of the King Tiger. Don't get me wrong, I love the King Tiger, it's a fantastic tank, but with the current matchmaker, the only nation that the King Tiger could reliably fight against at the same BR would be the Americans and the British. The Russians have simply moved their BR scheme up to 7.3, and at 7.3, if you keep playing 6.7 tanks, I bet you're going to have the same up tiers as you will with 7.0. At least with 7.0, you stand a much better chance of clubbing them back. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video somewhat. I know there was not a lot of gameplay in the background, but it's something that I had to get out relatively quickly to hopefully aid with some of the confusion, or at least reduce some of the misinformation that could perhaps be spread around. I haven't been reading the comments around other videos. I've not been watching or reading any of the threads that have been posted, but this is something that I noticed only recently myself. It is an issue with the BR scheme. It is time for 9.0 to come into the game, but it's also time for people to start lining up their tanks properly. And if I do get the chance to make a couple of quick guides, I might even touch on the topic of how to build an effective lineup at a particular BR. Because this is something that I've noticed a lot of players do wrong, and they perhaps non-willingly or simply not knowing that they're taking out inferior lineups affect their teams in a very negative way, and that's why German teams, in my opinion, still do lose plenty of their matches. Now, to touch on to just one last topic, the incoming spam of T-34s, the IS-6 and the RU-251, I will talk about it individually, hopefully I'll make a video on the T-34 at least. As for the IS-6 and the RU-251, I think the RU-251 would do a fantastic job at 7.0. As for the IS-6, 7.3 would not make a difference in the current matchmaker. 7.7 would be the solution, but then you also need to introduce, like previously mentioned, 9.0 tanks, which means that you get the spread of BR and make sure the IS-6 is fighting in a higher BR, but not necessarily at top tier. So that's why we need the 9.0 spread, so that 7.7 represents higher BR, but not the top tier matchmaker, which would make no sense for a tier 4 premium tank. Anyway, hope this wasn't too much of a trigger practice for those of you who don't like other people's opinions. In general, this is something I only recently noticed, and it made complete sense when finally looking at the whole picture. When you look at all the BR spreads, when you look at all the nations together, there simply aren't comparable BRs, which means that, you know, even though Germans might spam out 6.7 the most, Russians don't. If Russians did spam 6.7 out the most, then you would have a balanced BR. But like this, up tiers and down tiers become more and more probable as battle ratings that are being spammed out the most by players are not being balanced out. And as such, the only solutions that I see is either doing something with the positioning of the King Tiger, whereas if you lower the battle rating or increase it, you'll have to change the battle ratings of every other nation. The real fix would be to finally introduce the 9.0 BR, assist the spread of tanks, lower the RP gain to assist people with actually getting more tanks unlocked. A 50% reduction should do the trick. And hopefully within one patch and then following up in maybe a couple of months, we should have everything leveled out. What Gaijin will do, however, is their concern. This is just my recommendation for what I believe is the most efficient, fastest, and probably the easiest one for the community to stomach through. Anyways, I'll be back tomorrow with a normal gameplay video. Until then, take care, and catch you in the next one.